So we're back with another episode of the Sustainiacs. After the Christmas and sickness, I had COVID, I broke my foot. You're just plain old insane, and we're trying to start this thing, and you got a call from somebody who's got a guitar that explodes or something. Which, speaking of Les Pauls, leads us to Gibsons. Let's talk about this cool little red rocker you got over here, man. What is this thing?
Gibson Melody Maker. Now, I've pulled it all apart.
Because you're doing some work for somebody on this.
We're going to do a little modification work. People really dig these guitars, and I understand the appeal of them. A lot of people had them as their first guitar.
Yeah.
And they are U.S.-made Gibsons, made in the mid to, actually from late 50s all the way on.
Maybe played.
Yeah, they often are. They're often heavily played, or very loved on.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is neat about it is the body and the neck are virtually the same. Look at that. Mm-hmm. Look at that on the monitor. Mm-hmm. The body and the neck are virtually the same thickness.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay? What this does is when you load this thing up with a set of 10-gauge strings, this body and the neck will bow. The bow will actually get pretty continuous all the way across.
Yeah.
Well, that puts a lot of tension on the body and makes it rather sensitive to small changes on the strings.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these things often, man, there's an old Southern saying, they get bowed up. Which,
yeah.
When that means basically
they get aggressive.
They get aggressive and they get real sensitive and short-tempered. And these guitars absolutely fit that whole idea of being bowed up. Yeah, they do. When they
make
get
it
that
happen,
way,
man.
They get in your face fast.
Yeah.
The drawback with them was the pickups were very weak. So a lot of people will buy these and get a good humbucker or something to stick them in.
Now, were these built as meaning to be a cheap guitar?
They were a entry-level guitar.
Okay.
So, and I can't, Gibson.
Nothing wrong with entry. I mean, you got to if you're a factory, if you're looking for stuff, you got to cover all the ends, man.
Right. Well, I mean, you don't want to alienate your customers. That almost happened to Martin. For a period of time in the late '60s and '70s, there were no Martins less than about $1,200.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they literally alienated a whole set of customers that couldn't afford because they were younger. And then in the '80s, Martin was like going, "Hey, how come the youngins aren't buying our guitars?"
And they need to, because it's a bluegrass guitar.
They realize you can't abandon those little guys who's got maybe a couple $100, and has to mow a lot of grass to get that back in those days.
Somebody's first coming in and playing bluegrass. They don't have a ton of money.
I realize that. And a lot of guys actually got their hand-me-downs from grandpa, or some uncle.
This is what I'm talking about. So you start killing off the people in that, because they were a very specific guitar, weren't they? Weren't they fairly specific towards bluegrass, the way they originally come set up from the?
Well, yeah, they kind of were.
So if you start saying, okay, we're only going to sell 1,200, well, you're only selling to my age bluegrass guy, not the 16-year-old, 18-year-old guy that is the next generation of your customers, and you got to capture those guys.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Martin tried to figure that out with the Shenandoah models.
Okay.
But it was almost a little bit too late, too little too late kind of thing.
Gotcha.
They came out with a lesser expensive guitar, all right. And it was partially Japanese made and partially American assembled.
Was it
a decent guitar.
Oh, okay.
And they all came with electrics, which was a little bit of a off-putting to the bluegrass guys. They didn't particularly care for the fact that it came with an electric pickup in it, but it still wasn't that affordable. It was still around $1,100-$1,200.
Well, shoot, they didn't reduce any of it.
Well, they really didn't. I mean, they reduced it by maybe a couple $100, and that was about it.
Jeez.
Melody Maker.
Yeah.
Love these little guitars. Very
So
simple.
this was an entry level. It was meant to be a good entry level cheap guitar.
Right.
And therefore it wasn't great.
It wasn't fabulous because they had to cut corners somewhere.
Correct.
They didn't cut corners on the wood. It's mahogany. And it's a set neck. It's a glue-in neck with, a nice heel joint. Everything is really well done. But the pickups were pretty thin. It was just a single coil with an actual humbucker bar magnet just slid right into the middle of the bottom.
Yeah.
And standard pots and a jack. You know, no, I mean,
Nothing
it was
fancy.
Yeah, it was as bare bones as you could get, but it worked. But a lot of guys were wanting something a little more punch in it, so they would take these out and route them and put humbuckers in them and all sorts of things. And they made these with either a single pickup or a double pickup.
So if it didn't have the chutzpah,
Yeah.
right, that ground what they wanted,
The cojones.
why did they? Yeah, the cojones. Why did they take it to the doctor and add cojones to it? Why didn't they just buy one with cojones? You know what I mean?
Back in those days, there weren't too many doctors of guitar.
Well, this is what I'm saying. So why
they did
mess
their-
with doing that? Just because of why was it so popular to say, hey, I got to figure out how to get some really good,
Well, it
better
still
pickup?
boils down to money.
Yeah.
Because what happens is these guys are like, well, okay, so this guitar was probably in the $100 to, $50, $160 range.
Yeah.
Okay, so they're sitting there going, well, I've got a lot of money tied up in this guitar because, hey, $150 was a lot.
Sure.
That was my parents' mortgage payment was $110.
Yeah. Back in the day, sure.
Yeah, so if you think about that and you're going, well, I've got all this money tied up in this guitar, I'd love to own that, but I can't really afford it. But I can go and buy a $35 pickup and put in here. You see? So that
I got you.
that usually facilitated bringing out the drills and chisels.
Okay, so then
And
how did it become the Melody Maker that I know of? I'd love to have one. What made it famous?
Well, people like Joan Jett. Yeah,
This is a Joan Jett guitar.
Yeah, Joan Jett's little Melody Maker that she hacked up and put a humbucker in there. I mean, that's the sound of her stuff,
Yeah.
That is the deal from the Runaways on, right? So if you're into those kinds of
Runaways as
bands,
well.
yeah, if you're into that kind of band and those kind of raw sounds, then yeah, these Melody Makers the punks love them, but they got to be 1,000 and up now. So
For noon.
yeah, well, for vintage one, the new ones are still, even the reissues that they put out a few years ago were like $3.99 for a period of time. But if you didn't scarf it up, it's now $700 or $800.
Yeah, because people knew $3.99, boom, and a couple.
Yeah, a U.S. made Gibson for $3.99.
$3.99,
I'll
done.
take 12, please.
Yeah, exactly. Right? Yeah, and then go grab some pickups and beef it up.
Absolutely, and they were just great little hot rod platforms. I've been thinking very seriously about, and that's why this guitar is disassembled. I'm making a new pick guard, putting in a rail top humbucker for this.
Yeah.
And not routing anything, so that's going to
You're
be
going to leave that as is.
Going to leave that as is. This is an original color too, called Ember Red.
You can tell that's original because it's all gaitered up and opened, as you would like to say.
Yep.
That thing is cracked everywhere. It is got.
Oh yeah, it's got tons of.
Not only is it
checking
beat up,
all
but
over
it's
it.
checking everywhere. That thing is gorgeous.
And I think this is always kind of cool. This is one of the few guitars that had plastic buttons, plastic strap buttons,
Very cool.
on both ends.
Yeah.
So what a cool thing.
Cool.
But these have Brazilian Rosewood boards. Yeah.
It's not, these are pretty cheap, though.
They were.
But if a wind blows, it'll spin that. Bring.
And they bend pretty easy. As
Yeah,
you can see.
yeah, that one's bent.
Get a little wonky.
Yeah.
But that's okay. They're tough little tuners. They'll put up with a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is true that some people will pull these off and try to convert them over to a sealed Kluson or something, which is better.
It is, but I see what you're saying. I mean, this is a great little light, cool, aggressive when you get the right.
It's a hot
get the
rod.
right strings and
This
get
is
the right
perfect
pickup
hot rod
on it,
platform.
and just punk out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And the little single wraparound bridge.
Yeah.
If you upgrade that to something that's intonatable, these are just monsters.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, they're just vicious little monsters.
So, is there limitations to what you can do with the pickups on this thing because of the thickness of that body?
Well,
There is really, really thin.
Yeah, it is very thin. It's like an inch and I want to say it's like an inch and a quarter.
I mean, Strats are fairly thin, and that is looks like it's like 3/4
This is
of a
thinner
Strat,
than
maybe.
This is thinner than an SG.
That's okay.
That's
Yeah,
very
that's
thin. So-
really thin.
So
piece
one of the
wood.
problems with this is, and it doesn't have a whole lot of neck angle. It's
But you can see it when you
it's
held it
got
up.
some.
Yeah.
It's got some, but it's really close to being
it's-
parallel.
yeah, it's
when
not-
you
yeah.
think about that.
Oh, yeah,
So,
yeah.
The problem is if you wanted to put like a long framed humbucker with the long ears, you couldn't really do it. It wouldn't go in there. But today we've got tons of companies that are making really fine sounding single coil shaped twin bladed pickups like the Seymour Duncan Little 59, the cool rails, the hot rails. There's tons of DiMarzio makes a bunch of them. So you don't have to route. You don't have to do any routing at all. It'll drop right in here.
Really? Okay. So it's pretty easy to upgrade this thing to with some decent pickups.
Absolutely.
So it's a beautiful platform.
I think it is.
It's highly customizable.
Yep.
It's light as hell.
You don't have to do too much to it.
You have
maybe an extra $300, and you can literally. What I'm doing is I'm going to take the original pick guard, make a new tracing, put all of his electronics original back on it, and set it aside. It's going to be just an original pick guard all sitting on the side that he could save. We're going to make a new pick guard with the new electronics, all new pots, switch, jack, and pickup, and it's just going to be literally one ground wire and done. Put it on, done. Because the jack is on here. Yeah. Or jack's down here. So you got volume tone and a jack. You can't get any
great little hot rod.
This is a true 23 model T, and stick a 32 model V8 in it.
Yeah,
and you've got a little fire breathing monster.
Yeah. I love it. It's extremely cool.
Yeah.
It's extremely cool. I love the lightweightness of it. You could jump around all over on stage and just get nuts with it.
Yeah, and people just dig this little small headstock.
Oh, that little headstock is just teeny. It's very, very cool. Very cool. Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah, I've had a couple of these and they made them in single cutaways that look like a more traditional Les Paul, and then the double cutaway, and they made one that got a little less wood right here.
Really?
Yeah. It's more of a round butt.
Yeah.
And then they make what I call the droopy butt.
Round and the droopy. I like this butt.
I think, and I'm not positively sure, but I think this is the same model that Joan Jett's is. Hers is the elongated butt down there.
I have to look at some videos to check that out.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've looked at her. I just remember it's white. That's all I can remember. But
yeah, it is white. You're absolutely right. Yeah. So yeah, I saw her at the Euclid Tavern.
Oh, really?
In Cleveland.
Oh, man.
Which is where they
Ohio.
The living
Not Tennessee.